Hi, I'm super excited to have Chad Rigetti, founder and CEO of Rigetti Computing, with me today. My SPAC, Supernova II, is merging with Rigetti Computing and helping them go public through a SPAC merger. I'm excited to be a supporter and an investor and a shareholder in Rigetti. Chad, great to speak with you. Thanks for being here with me.
Awesome. Good to see you, Spencer.
So let's start with the basics. Can you explain to me and other mere mortals who are not wizard scientists like you, what exactly is quantum computing and why should we all care?
Yeah, I would love to. Traditional computers, they've been getting better and better for the past 70 years since the invention of the transistor, but all traditional computers are still fundamentally the same at the bit level. So they encode information in bits which can represent either 0 or 1. And those bits are physically built with transistors. Now, quantum computers are fundamentally different. They encode information in something called quantum bits that are based on the laws of quantum mechanics. And quantum bits can actually simultaneously represent both 0 and 1 at the same time. And as a result of that, quantum computers are imbued with this magical, almost magical capability to kind of solve problems by evaluating solutions simultaneously, rather than having to do so sequentially as with all traditional computers.
Okay, so I think I once read that this 0 to 1 difference between classical and quantum is sort of like, imagine when you flip a coin, how it's heads, tails, as it's spinning in the air. That's sort of classical computing, always zeros and ones. Now imagine if you flip that coin infinitely quickly. And so it's spinning heads, tails so quickly that it is basically heads and tails at the same exact time. That's what you mean by quantum computing and qubits or qubits, being 1 and 0 at the same time. Am I, does that analogy hold up to you?
It holds up to an extent, and it's a useful, kind of mnemonic, if you will, or a framework to kind of think about it. Ultimately, what quantum computers do is really leverage the laws of quantum mechanics that allows things like quantum entanglement, superposition to take hold. This is a fundamental theory of nature that's been around since the first kind of 10 years of the 1900s. And it describes how nature works at the lowest level. It governs small molecules, electrons, photons, the subatomic particles that make up the universe. And quantum mechanics overall just allows different things to physically happen. It's a different physical theory than what's called the kind of classical Newtonian laws of physics that govern that coin that you're flipping. No matter how fast it's spinning, it's still governed by Newtonian laws of physics. Mm-hmm. And what quantum computers are able to do is to tap into that deeper, more powerful theory of nature and to leverage those principles to encode and process information in exponentially more powerful ways.
So these computers that Rigetti and others are building are machines. They look like servers and like regular computers that you might see in a data center, and they are connected to the cloud so that customers can access these quantum computers through the cloud, through Amazon Web Services and other. Am I describing it correctly?
That's exactly right. So Rigetti is a full stack, what we call a full stack company. We're vertically integrated from quantum computer chip design and fab and chip production, through integration into what we call quantum processor units, through integration with cloud software and cloud computing infrastructure to deliver the power of quantum computing to end users and end customers, and also to allow them to leverage quantum in tandem with existing classical computers like GPUs or FPGAs to solve these high impact computing problems with better performance you can do without quantum.
So who are some examples of customers that would use quantum computers and what problems would they aim to solve?
We're starting to see uptake and interest in quantum computing from organizations around the world, public sector, private sector. What's happening right now is substantially all organizations that use computing as part of their strategic advantage or core operations are starting to look to quantum computing. They recognize what's coming next and are starting to lean in to kind of bring the technology into their organizations. Some examples, we've got a contract with DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where we're developing a next generation quantum processor for applications to network optimization. We've got contracts with the Department of Energy and Lawrence Livermore National Lab, where scientists are using Rigetti quantum computers to simulate the reactions that take hold in a nuclear fusion reaction This isn't weapons. This is about limitless clean energy, unlocking limitless clean energy from the same kind of nuclear reactions that power the sun. It's one of the most important and transformative, emerging technologies in the world, and it's finding application in a lot of different domains. Now, on the private sector side, we've got a partnership with Standard Chartered where we're looking at applying quantum computing into financial markets and understanding, as well as with Astex Pharmaceutical, where we're developing quantum computer simulation capabilities for drug target development.
If you're a company that has an impossibly difficult problem to solve, like UPS trying to figure out how to route every package around the world, or a pharma company trying to model how a drug would interact with human biology, currently those problems are being solved on regular classical computers, and those might take days, weeks, months to run, but on a quantum computer they can be solved in days, minutes, hours. Give a sense of the step change of improvement that quantum can deliver as compared with classical.
So in the future, quantum computers are going to be able to solve problems that are what we call classically intractable. So problems that you just can't solve with any current or future classical machine that you might build, no matter how big you build that system. Today, quantum computing, after kind of 20 years of research, starting in academia and then pushing out into industry, Rigetti now is 8 years old, and we've been pioneering this technology for the better part of a decade. Today, quantum computers are reaching a threshold, or close to achieving a threshold, that we call quantum advantage. And quantum advantage is where you're able to solve a problem with improved accuracy, speed, or cost, with quantum computing in the loop, if you will, relative to no quantum computing in your solution. And that's going to be a big inflection point in the industry going forward. There's a next inflection point after that, Spencer, that we think of as broad quantum advantage. This is where you go from, maybe it's not a factor of 2 or 5 cheaper than a purely classical solution for solving that problem, but it's actually able to solve a problem that today isn't addressed with computation at all, because it's just beyond the reach of classical computing. And this is what we call broad QA, or broad quantum advantage. In that case, you're going to start to bring new kinds of workflows into a compute-based solution for the first time. And I think ultimately quantum computers are going to disrupt not just existing computing solutions, but ultimately things like wet chemistry. Instead of doing, synthesizing a molecule through a wet chemistry approach at the bench in a lab, you're going to be able to do simulation-driven design of new molecules, new medicines, new materials. And quantum computing is going to fundamentally accelerate the rate of technology advance around the world.
Mind-boggling, amazing, mind-bending. So let's take a step back and go through your career coming out of college. What does one even study in college to start a quantum computer scientist? And then walk us through your IBM and then the start of Rigetti.
You bet. So I remember very well, I was a junior in college. I was a physics major, and I was taking a class in computer science. I wasn't the best computer scientist. And I was also taking a class in quantum mechanics, a first class in quantum mechanics you do as an undergrad physics major. I was struggling because two things were weighing on my mind at the same time, and I couldn't kind of grasp them. One was, what is this theory of quantum mechanics? It doesn't make sense. There's all these strange phenomena like entanglement and superposition, and it doesn't map to the natural macroscopic world that we live in every day. So it was beguiling. And then at the same time, I was taking a computer science class and asking the question of, how does a computer actually work? I'm not talking about how do you turn it on and how do you program it, but how does it actually encode and store information at the metal, as people say. And I was wrestling with those two ideas and questions, and I just thought, hey, and then I read about this field called quantum computing, and I thought maybe I can answer one question instead of two, and just say, how does a quantum computer work? And then I'll be able to understand both quantum mechanics and quantum computing, as well as how traditional computers work. And I got very interested in the field. I went and did a PhD in this area at Yale University. I looked for a research group that was working on what I thought at the time would be a potentially scalable technology for quantum computing. And that led me to superconducting qubit research group at Yale, led by Professor Michel Deveray, who's one of the luminaries in the field, has trained many of the leading scientists and engineers in quantum computing, and he's made incredible contributions to quantum computing overall. I also did a postdoc at Yale, and then I joined IBM Research in 2010. I spent about 3 years at IBM, and it was a very exciting time. Quantum computing was starting to move out of the lab and in academia and move into industrial research for the first time. And ultimately, by around 2013, I could see trends happening in core quantum computing research. There are multiple different problems to be solved at that time. You needed better qubits, you needed longer coherence times, you needed better quantum algorithms, and you also needed better what are called error correcting codes, ways of kind of driving effective error rates to zero at scale. And ultimately, there was incredible progress being made around all these fronts simultaneously. And I kind of saw those trends, and I made the decision to start Rigetti Computing because I saw an opportunity to build a vertically integrated player, a vertically integrated company that would solve the engineering challenges needed to bring quantum computing truly to the mainstream market. Now, 8 years later, the incredible engineering team and the incredible researchers at Rigetti have developed some, just pioneering technology, and they've solved the scalability challenge in quantum computing with a multi-chip technology solution that we believe is going to allow us to really leap to the leadership role in the overall global quantum computing race.
So you've raised venture capital throughout this 8-year journey. You've staffed up a couple hundred employees now, primarily in the Bay Area, but also distributed now. And you've decided to go public through a SPAC merger with my company, Supernova. Tell us about that transaction. Why have you decided to go public? What do you think it means for Rigetti and for the technology?
This technology has been in development, as I said, for a couple decades now, and it's reached an inflection point. At Rigetti, we've solved the scalability challenge with a multi-chip processor architecture. And it's been more than 4 years, we've been consistently operating our quantum computers over the cloud. We've built up a foundation in the business of long-term customer contracts, growing the revenue. And now is the time to, we're going to fully capitalize the business through this balance. We're going to fully capitalize the balance sheet through this transaction. We're going to be able to invest these proceeds into accelerating our product development. So over the past 8 years, we've raised $200 million in capital and invested that in building an incredible organization. And we've really been going serially, kind of one generation after another in the chip development. And we're going to be able to accelerate that by parallelizing it going forward. And we're going to be able to bring this technology to the broader market through our cloud distribution partnerships. As we step into the public markets, the opportunity in quantum computing is truly enormous. McKinsey and BCG have both looked at this, and they say it's somewhere between several $100 billion to $1 trillion long term. It's mind-boggling, the size of the opportunity. That opportunity is all ahead of us.
Sorry, that's what they're estimating, that within 10 or so years, companies will pay to quantum computer companies to use their services. Is that?
They've got their methodologies. All I take away from that, it's a really big number.
It's really big.
It's a really big market.
Right.
And so what we're doing now, Spencer, we're investing in the business, we're investing in the team, and we're taking Rigetti public through this transaction. And ultimately, we're stepping, when we go out and kind of look for new partners, look for new customers, there's IBM, there's Google, there's Microsoft, there's Amazon that are out there. All these are big participants in the space, and we're just thrilled with the platform of being a public company and building the leading global player here.
Well, it's an exciting time for Rigetti. It's an exciting time for the technology and for the world. Once this technology becomes more commercially available over the next couple of years, it has the potential to have a massive impact on so many industries. It's going to be amazing. It's fun for me to play a tiny part in the growth of the company, and I'm really excited for Rigetti. Thanks a lot, Chad, for the discussion, and thank you for illuminating me and others that are watching this. Good luck.
Thanks, Spencer.